So I think what many people don't really understand is that inflation is when prices of commodities, goods and services are soaring, and it also means that you have to take so much amount of money to get that goods and services. So impliedly, it's just too much money chasing fewer goods and services. So in those circumstances, inflations lead to certain actions by the central bank. Central bank is mandated with the responsibility to control inflation and of course to try to put some regulations that will really ensure economic stability and sustainability. So in these circumstances, when there is inflation, central banks around the world tend to increase rate, which is monetary policy. By increasing interest rate, the cost of money, everything in the world has cost. The cost of a bicycle, for example, is what you pay for it, maybe 25,000 naira, 30,000 naira. The cost of a television set is maybe 200,000 naira. The cost of a bag of tomato maybe is 2,500. So money also has a cost, and the cost of money is interest rates. So the central banks usually tend to increase interest rates when there is inflation. And inflation is of two different types, really. We have cost push inflation, which is inflation or producer inflation, really, when a producer has to source for, the materials, the raw materials, the input for the production at a much higher cost, then he really has to pass on that cost on to the consumers who buy the commodity, or he takes the burden. And the profit, the purpose of every business is to make profit, and nobody will be making businesses that are making profit, really. So what they do really is that they tend to pass on the cost or the increased cost of, maybe for example, a pure water factory used to purchase maybe a bag of you know empty leather, for example, at the cost of 250,000 naira, and because of inflation the price rose from 250,000 naira to 1 million naira. So it means a bag of sachet of water should be around maybe from 5 naira to 10 naira, or more than that, really. So that is cost push inflation. And we also have demand push inflation. We always know that excessive demand over supply, results in increased prices. When too many people wanted to buy some certain commodity, the price of the commodity will really go up, really. And this is demand push inflation. When there is too much demand of a commodity and there is no corresponding increase in supply of that commodity, then will be excessive demand over supply, and this really results in inflation. So central banks around the world, mandated with responsibility of controlling inflation, comes up with monetary policy rate increase, which is interest rate increase. By interest rate increase, it means it will be very hard for people to patch to make, borrow from the bank and expend on too much of that money on unnecessary goods, because when there is too much money in circulation, that too much money which is in fear goods. By increasing interest rate, it means people who are willing to purchase goods and services, maybe at luxuries, unnecessary commodities, or all these kind of things, really, we don't have to really borrow from the banks because of increased monetary policy. And of course also to try to reduce the money in circulation. By reducing the money in circulation, then there will be restoration of balance between the demands and supply, really. And when demand is reduced to catch up with the supply, that balance that will restore, the required balance that will be needed to restore stable prices over time. So this is really how it really works. And when the inflation increases and monetary policy also increases, which is, the cost of borrowing, the cost of lending to the bank, increases so much, so that companies who always borrow from from those banks to make production. For example, I myself, I currently want to borrow some money from banks for my business upcoming 2 months, really. And because of this monetary policy, I will not be able to do that. And by not being able to do that, it means I wouldn't make so much money this year, and I wouldn't maybe start building a home or buying a new car or spending for my vacation, summer vacation elsewhere. All this, so this is how the cycle really works. I hope you really understand what we mean. Thank you very much.